Once you've secured the property that you're interested in and you have your conditions met, whether it's finance, home inspection, or home sale, you now will have to remove those conditions, making the deal firm, what we call firm in the business. That means you're locked, loaded, the contract's signed, sealed, and delivered. Nobody's getting out. That's the time we have to look at between firm and close. Close is when you actually move in. You give the money, you get the keys, ownership is transferred to you. There are lots of things in that period of time that you need to do. A couple of things you got to start out with is schedule your time to go and take a look at the property again. Normally what we do for our clients is put in 2 times, at least 2 times, for them to revisit the property between firm and close. Why do we do this? Well, they may want to just take a look at the property, show some family members, maybe they want to get some work done, they're going to bring some contractors in. That's a great opportunity to do that. The second time, really use as a final walkthrough, maybe a couple of days before closing. You want to make sure that, for example, if you had the fridge, the stove, the washer, the dryer, all included in your offer, you want to make sure those are the very ones you'd seen and negotiated for, because I've seen many times over the years people swap out appliances. They may have a rental property that they bring an old appliance in. It's a fridge. Okay, I'm going to give you a fridge, but you want to make sure it's that fridge. So going back a bit to the offer standpoint, when you're crafting that, if you're including the appliances, you want to make sure that you take down the manufacturer, and you also want to take down the serial number so you can validate those on closing. You don't want to have anybody ripping off your stuff, especially if it's nicer, because honestly, I've seen some crazy stuff out there. Further to that, you want to make sure that they have not ruined the house. And I know that sounds odd, but let's assume, or something has happened. Let's assume that they vacated the premises and some animal's gotten in, whether it's a raccoon or fence that's toppled over or something that's gone on. You want to make sure that you can address that well before closing. That's your leverage. After that, we want to make sure that you have your insurance taken care of. You got to call your insurance company. You've got to call the bank, make sure that they understand you're making this move. They've already done the pre-approval. You give them the paperwork for the offer that's now accepted and it's firm. They will do paperwork that they send over to your lawyer. With respect to the lawyer, you got to make sure that you contact them. They're very poor at communicating to their clients by and large. So instead of waiting for them to say, hey, papers are ready and you might be out of town, you want to make sure you schedule a time that they will meet with you based on your schedule and have the ability to sign all the necessary paperwork at that particular point. You'll have to sign the transfer of the title/deed. You'll have to sign the mortgage paperwork. There's other documents that you'll have to provide, proof of down payment, bring the down payment, etc., etc. So making sure that you handle that. The other thing you want to do is make sure that you have your utilities figured out. So your gas, your hydro, your water, things like that, you want to make sure that they know you're moving in on such and such a date so that all of your utilities are on when you move in. If the previous people canceled their utilities and you didn't set yours up, well, you're SOL. And on a long weekend that's really hot, that's not so cool. So now let's talk about the day of closing. That's the day that you're supposed to get the house. The money is transferred to the owners. The keys are given to you. I've seen many times where people have conflicts on the day of closing, the buyer and the seller, because the buyer wants to be in once he hears that the deal is closed and the house is his. Let's assume that your lawyer said you're going to close at 2 o'clock today, and you get there at 2 o'clock to the house, deal is closed, and the seller is just starting to move their stuff. You're paying for a truck, you're paying for movers potentially, you could be frustrated and tired, and all of a sudden these people are just starting. It's the worst thing in the world. Terribly frustrating. So what we do for our clients is we actually call the other agent and make sure that we understand when it is that the seller is likely going to be moving out given all of their circumstances. And we do our best to negotiate. If that's not going to work out for you, we do our best to negotiate an earlier time or possibly a later time, whatever. But we want to do this in advance so that you don't have that friction on the day of closing. It's stressful enough. You don't want to be having that situation. Those are the steps I would recommend between the firm point and closing. If you adhere to that, I think it'll be smooth sailing. So at this point, if you're interested in getting together to have a chat about anything I've spoken about here, please feel free to call. I'd be happy to help.